Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. I wanted to start off this video by thanking everyone who watched my video 2 weeks ago, the one where I said what it would take for me to sell out, where I was just being super silly, telling you guys about all the brands that I would definitely accept any sponsorship deal. And obviously the video was quite unhinged. I started off with like cookie makers, and then I went into like Louis Vuitton and like Chaumet and just these really big name brand people that who would want nothing to do with me. But I mean, I am actually a client of theirs and I do use their products, so it's not that out of like the realm of like possibility, but it is pretty much out of the realm of possibility. But it was just a video I wanted to do because I thought it'd be fun and like just humorous, and I'm really happy that so many of you guys got the humor out of it and that you just really enjoyed it, even in all of its stupidity, which some of you guys say you like the stupid video, so I'm happy. So yeah, thank you so much for watching that. I really did enjoy making that video. We're still trying to manifest sponsors. Leclerc, if Leclerc wants to contact me, I'm already wearing your shirt, as you can see. For those wondering what Leclerc is a major sponsor of Le Tour de France in France. I was watching one of the stages, and typically all the sponsors, the sponsors have all their cars and they drive the route before all the cyclists arrive, and they like throw out merchandise like free t-shirts and free candies. If it's like a food sponsorship, saucisson, like you can get free saucisson, you can like get free everything. And I got a t-shirt with les petits pois, the famous petits pois, knowing that the best climber of a stage, the climbers being in the mountainous regions, the cyclists who best climbed the mountainous regions always receive the jersey of Les Petits Pois, which is what this is basically. So we're trying to get a sponsorship either from the Tour de France or from Leclerc. I will accept either one. But yes, we're still trying to manifest those sponsorships. In any case, let's get into today's video, which is my February wrap up. It's going to be a long one because not only did I read quite a few books, but I actually read really good books. I'm having a really good, strong reading year right now. I am enjoying so much about what I'm reading. And it's just, I'm just having an absolute blast. I do this time though, to make sure the video isn't like 2 hours long, I do need to pull out my computer and pull out my notes this time around, because there are things I want to say that I make sure I say correctly. And I think, I need the notes to be able to be a lot more succinct with my thoughts, which I'm not very known for being. But there's a huge variety, so let me just tell you what all the titles are, so that maybe you can skip around if you feel like you want to. I ended up reading Resurrection by Leo Tolstoy. I read Le Docteur by Jules Verne. I read The Kraken Wakes by John Wyndham. I read 6-4 by Hideo Yokoyama. I read a short story collection, Le Geste by Henri Troyat. And then I read one volume of manga, volume 16 of Yotsuba. So let me start with the ones that are going to be the easiest to discuss, because I don't know, they're just easy. Let's start with the short story collection of Le Geste or Yves' Gesture by Henri Troyat. Henri Troyat is one of those French authors who was very prolific. He wrote over 100 books in his lifetime. But the thing is that he's a very kind of forgotten author. He's not an Alexandre Dumas, he's not a Victor Hugo, he's not one of those type of authors. But he was a very good and very prolific author. And strangely enough, he's actually more known for his nonfiction than he is his fiction. I haven't actually read his nonfiction, but he has very, very famous biographies that have actually been translated to English. His fiction, I think only one book has been translated to English that I'm aware of, and it's out of print and hard to get your hands on, although it's the one I recommend highly. It's called The Mountain. But Henri Troyat is one of those authors that I reach for when I need some smooth, super buttery type reading that's calming, but actually has a very almost dark story behind it, right? I know that I'm going to have something easy to read in terms of readability, but I'm going to have some darkness to it, which makes it worth. I don't know if having darkness is what makes a book worth reading, which is what I was about to say, but having darkness adds to that, that touch of interest that a book can provide for you. It's obviously not the only thing I look for books, but I do like a touch of darkness in my reading. This is my first time reading a story of a collection of short stories by him. I've only read his long novels, or I've only read his novel length books. So this was a new adventure for me. It was very different, but it definitely stayed within the realm of what he typically likes to write. So looking at my notes, he's an author. He likes to focus on like a problematic relationship that has a melancholy feel to it, which is what I would say. So for example, the book The Mountain, his most famous work, is about two brothers who are who have to trek into the mountains to save some people that had been in a plane crash at the top of the mountain. And so the book is about the relationship between the brothers that has hit a very hard turn. They don't have a really good relationship, which adds that melancholy feel. So the other books I've read by him was one book with a father-son relationship with that melancholy feel. Another book of his that I read had a professor-student relationship, again with that melancholy feel. And this collection of short stories definitely continues that theme of melancholy and then characters who have real problems, okay? So, for example, in one of the short stories, the very first short story, you have a woman who's looking for a husband, and she decides to start working in a barbershop because that gives her access for men. She does end up finding a husband, but there's a twist to it. And the thing about this collection of short stories that I didn't mention is that this is the first time that I see Troyat add a touch of magical realism to his stories. All of his books that I've read so far have been quite realistic in nature. So I didn't know he could do magical realism. And it was interesting. It was fascinating. I really, really enjoyed myself. But there's a story about a man who doesn't really understand the difference between solitude and loneliness. There's another book about a woman who prioritizes her relationships with animals over men. And yeah, Troyat just takes all of these problematic and these melancholic characters and he adds a magical realism twist to them. And I thought this collection was really, really strong and really fun with them. Ironically, the title story, Le Geste d'Ève, or the Eve's Gesture, was the weakest out of all of them. It's the very last short story in this collection, and I just didn't think it was really good. It did nothing for me. But all the other stories I enjoyed. I very much enjoyed. I read one a day during my lunch break and really just had a nice time with this. The next book I read that actually continued the idea of reading a collection of short stories was Le Docteur so by Jules Verne. This story, The Doctor Ox, is actually translated as a fantasy of Dr. Ox. So they added a few words. So a fantasy of Dr. Ox. And let's start with the title story, okay? The Le Docteur Ox, a fantasy of Dr. Ox. This story was hilarious, absolutely hilarious. I loved it. I laughed so hard. It was fantastic. Basically, it's the story of this one village that is known for having a townfolk that are very slow, they're very genteel, they're very relaxed, they're not in a hurry to do anything, they're just having discussions, living their life, no worries, there's nothing to worry about, that can't be resolved with time, right? So the scene opens up with the mayor and his commissioner having a discussion about so a mayor and his counselor having a conversation about terminating the role of the commissary. Those were the words I was looking for. Because the commissary, obviously, if you're in a village where no one does anything, there's not really much need for a policeman. So the mayor and his counselor have been discussing about whether they should terminate the job because there's no need for it. And after a very long discussion, they resolved to take more time to getting to a determination of whether to resolve the idea. So you get the point, right? And it's just fantastic. It's just this crazy village that's just like they love the opera, and they invite very famous artists from abroad, from other lands, to come to their village to perform an opera. And what should be a 3-hour opera takes 2 weeks in that village to be performed, and everything is slowed down, tempo's brought down, an allegro becomes an adagio, right? So it's just silliness. And the thing is that what happens is that you have this Dr. Ox who has decided to perform an experiment on the village without their realization, and it causes chaos, and the chaos is insane and it's crazy, and I laughed so hard. It was absolutely wonderful. Highly recommend The Short Story of a Fantasy of Dr. Ox. Now, this particular book has 2 more short stories, because basically what this collection actually is that it takes the Dr. Ox, which was written at the peak of his career, but then it also has 2 other short stories that were written before his career really took off, right? So it was kind of experimental. So you have this one story called Un drame dans les airs, which means a drama that takes place in the sky. And it's a hot air balloon story. And basically, it's not a very strong story at all. Like, basically, it's not really worth reading unless you're like a Jules Verne completionist. But the thing is that you can see all the ideas from that short story that he uses in his other hot air balloon themed novels that were a lot more popular and a lot more successful. So it's interesting that you can get a really good feel of what his writing was before he became the Jules Verne, basically. So that was really fun. Also, I read a lot of this via Project Gutenberg, so I could read it online, so I can read it wherever I want without having to bring the physical book with me. And the Project Gutenberg French version has one extra story in the book, which isn't actually a Jules Verne story. It's actually a work that was written by his brother Paul Verne, and it's about Paul Verne's ascension of the Mont Blanc being the most famous mountain in France, right? It's the peak. It's a beautiful mountain. I know the mountains very well around there in the Alps. I've skied Chamonix, which is in the Mont Blanc area. But I've also I've never hiked Mont Blanc. Don't get any ideas of that I'm of that quality of hiker, but I have hiked a lot in les alentours, the surroundings, the surrounding areas of Mont Blanc. And Jules Verne's brother, Paul Verne, was not the first to ascend Mont Blanc, but he was part of the very first of people who were ascending Mont Blanc and doing it successfully. And turns out he's a lovely writer. I really enjoyed that story. It's just about his ascent and how it went, and it was divine. It turns out Jules Verne is not the only one who has a really nice writing talent in the family. Paul Verne's writing was good. So while it's not actually included in this physical book that I have, it is included in the Project Gutenberg version of Le Docteur Ox, and it is definitely highly recommended if you can read French to read that short story along it. I really enjoyed it. Okay. Another easy book to talk about. Let's talk about volume 16 of Yotsuba to, the manga. Yotsuba to is a very, very darling. It's a favorite of the manga world, in that it is just a story about this girl named Yotsuba, and Yotsuba to means Yotsuba and so every chapter is like Yotsuba and something. So and camping and cooking and school and her first day at the park and her first day at this, right? She's a really young little girl who's basically exploring the world with her family and the family friends, and she's got like enemies, which is basically her father's, one of her father's friends she really detests. She doesn't get along with him, and this particular volume of manga really features him hard. But this is just a lovely look at a young girl. It's an easy read, but it's just beautiful and peaceful and calming. Once again, I was in the period of reading where I really needed something calming. So I read these really close to each other, the Troyat and the Yotsuba, because I had just read The Resurrection by Tolstoy. I had just finished it, and that one was that had put so many ideas in my mind. I really just needed to, like, just calm, kind of refresh. And so these were kind of the two books that did that. And Yotsuba is just gorgeous. It's the latest title in the series. The series is one that back in the day came out with like one volume, a few volumes per year or so, maybe 2 volumes per year, and then the author took a big break, and now he just takes breaks. So volume 16 was the first volume of Yotsuba in 4 years. So it's one of those series where like there's no like any overarching plot. So I mean, the mangaka, the creator, can leave whenever he wants, but every once in a while he surprises us with a new volume, and that's always lovely, and it's always appreciated, and it's always just a good time. I mean, the art is gorgeous, the humor, it's just silly and adorable and lovely, and it's just such a peaceful way to spend your time. I absolutely love that. Okay, so now we're going to get into the books that are more difficult, or the books that I want to talk about a little bit more completely. Let's start with the Japanese thriller. I read this crime thriller called 6-4 by Hideo Yokoyama. I don't read thrillers very, very often. Maybe 1 or 2 a year. But if I do read a thriller, it's typically going to be Japanese. And this is a book that I had bought around, I think, 2020, I think. So I've had this on my pile for a while. So it was going to be read. It was going to be read, but I just need to take a time, since it's not really my main. It's not even a subgenre that I really read a lot. It's not a main genre. It's not even like a minor genre. It's just something every once in a while I'll pick it up, because it is true, they are very fun to read. They're very fast paced to read. And when you want some just like good tension, they're always fun to pick up. 6-4 is about, basically what happened is that there was this kidnapping case in 1989. It was the very last, it was like in December of 1989. And January 1989, I should get my facts right? January 1989. And basically what happened is that this girl was kidnapped, and the police were on the case, but they failed the case, and the girl was killed. She was murdered, and the kidnapper got away with the 20 million yen in ransom, and he was never heard from again. He was able to escape. Okay, and what's happening is that in the current day, which is about 2002, so it's 14 years later, the case kind of shows up again. And it shows up again because basically in Japan, at least at the time of when this was written, I don't know what the law is these days, but at this time there was a 15-year statute of limitations, where after the 15th year was passed, they could no longer prosecute the kidnapper even if they found him, right? So it's the very last year where they can try and just do the final push and try and get the kidnapper. And so what's going on is that that's not even the main story. It's one part of 3 major plots of the story. Okay, so you have this case from 14 years ago that happened, that is coming back to the present. Then you have the main character, who is a former detective, but he is now the director of media relations. So he's the person who brings all the facts from the police, from the detectives, and he shares them with the media, with the newspapers, so that they can publish it in their media, in their newspapers. And he has a daughter who has fled from home, and they're afraid, him and his wife are afraid that something bad has happened to her. They're looking for her, they're afraid if something's bad has happened to her. So basically, while he is processing all the information in this book, he has to deal with the fact that he has a daughter who's missing. And then the third aspect of this book is basically our main character has found a strange discrepancy, which brings back the case of 6-4, which was the kidnapping case. The whole reason it's called 6-4 is because in 1989, in the Japanese system of counting years and eras, is Showa 64. So Showa era 64, Showa 64. I'm born Showa 60, which is 1985. So Showa 64 is 1989, and that was the very last year of the Showa era before it became the Heisei era. So that's why this book is called 6-4. But basically what's happening is that he has discovered that there was a mistake made in the kidnapping case back in 1989, and there was a police cover-up based off of that case. And so there you go. So you have his missing daughter, a cover-up in the police and the judicial system, and then you have this kidnapping case, and you have to read this book and see how all three are related to each other and how they progress to this thrilling ending. And this was really a thrilling book. But I have to say, it is a 630-page book. It is a very long book, and I kind of question if it needed to be that long. The thing is that the first 400 pages, I was gripped. I was actually reading 100 pages per day. So in 4 days, I read the 400 pages. Then I went on a ski trip. When I came back from the ski trip, I kind of lost my momentum. But also the book, I think, kind of lost its momentum just a smidge, just a hint. But the thing is that the first 400 pages really focus on the police cover-up. And I was really, really getting into that. But then I think, and this is something I see in like Japanese movies a lot, where it almost turns into, I'm gonna sneeze very soon. Let's see if it passes. There's a thing in like that I don't like in like Japanese media and entertainment, and especially in movies, when it comes to like acting, where every situation they'll like do something super realistic, and then every situation gets exaggerated to where you're like, okay, you lost track of us. Like, you lost the realism, you lost the grittiness, and now you just went overboard and super exaggerated and overacted and overdone and non-believable, and it just becomes like silly at that point. And there was a moment where that happened in this book, and I was really mad at it because I was really into this book. I thought it was a really good look into like conspiracy, police cover-up, seeing how far or how deep and how high up the cover-up goes. Like, I thought that was really exciting. But when it got exaggerated at that point, I was like, no, why did you have to do that? Why did you have to do that thing that all Japanese media does? And it's so annoying. It's just, I hate it. It's like, especially actors, it's like, you guys, a lot of you are good actors, but you're being forced to make the most ridiculous faces that are so unhuman and so unrealistic that it just takes you out of the story immediately. So I did get taken out of the story when that happened. But then the final lead up to the end of the book and the end of the case and the end of the plot and the story, it was fun. It was a good ending. But I thought the first 2/3 were stronger than the last third. But overall, I do think it's still a very successful book, and it's a very fun book. So it looks thick in this book. I mean, it's just the pages are very thick in themselves, which is why this looks thick. But it was as most thrillers are, it was a very, very easy book to read. So still fun, still would recommend it. But it does do that thing that kind of aggravates me in Japanese media. Okay. What should I do next? John Wyndham or Leo Tolstoy? These books, both excellent. Highly recommended. This is going to be a long video because I don't know. Let's start with Tolstoy. So I have now read War and Peace, I've read Anna Karenina, and I've read now Resurrection. And I'm going to start with saying, if you're wondering which book to start reading Tolstoy, I would suggest this one as your first book. To be honest, I would read Resurrection before I read either Anna Karenina or War and Peace, because I think Anna Karenina is a great book that talks about human emotions and really goes into this really very lovely but like deeply harrowing road in terms of its storytelling. And so I think that attracts more certain types of readers. War and Peace, while it does have an overarching story, the whole point of War and Peace is to make a specific statement about how we view history and how looking back on history changes history itself. And it's basically a book also about so it's a book basically that ends up being about free will and fate and basically destiny, whether you have any control over your destiny or not, and what defines destiny and what defines free will, and again what defines history. How is history defined? So I think that tends to attract a certain reader. Now you can enjoy both. I enjoy both, but I do think both books will attract certain readers more than this one. This one I think is good at pulling readers from both sides. And so I think it's a good balance between the two. So what is Resurrection about? Resurrection is about our main character. So he's this very well-off man. His name is Prince Nekhludoff. And Prince Nekhludoff one day has been summoned to jury duty. And he gets to court and he realizes that he recognizes the criminal who is being processed in the case that he is a juror of. The prostitute is named Katerina Maslova, and she has been accused, along with two others, of poisoning and murdering a man who had used her services as a prostitute. Basically what happens is that she is deemed innocent of the murder, but the jury has made a mistake in their declaration. And even though she's been declared innocent, she is still, because they made a mistake, she has been sentenced to do hard labor in Siberia. And that Nekhludoff, basically, who not only is responsible for this mistake because he was on the jury duty, but he feels responsible for the prostitute Katerina because he actually knew her before, and he feels like the only reason she is a prostitute and that she has been punished into hard labor was all his fault to begin with, because what happened was basically that there was something that he did when they were young that pretty much started her off on this path. So the whole book is him trying to repent for his sins by taking it upon himself to have her sentence repealed. And the thing is that when with this new task of his in mind, he kind of discovers a new purpose in his life, because by trying to process her case, he comes to witness basically the shortcomings of the judicial system and basically the depravity of the prison system itself. Okay, so it's something he was incredibly unaware of, and now that he's seen it, he just can't ignore it. So this book is phenomenal. It's just absolutely phenomenal. It's a phenomenal look, and I'm looking heavily on my notes because I wrote a really good summary of this on my little online journal, and I just don't want to lose those words. But basically, Tolstoy, as basically with this book, he explores the results of class disparity and systematic poverty on the punishment of criminals. And so therefore he's looking at the results of the prison system. So it's just really just ridiculously fascinating. It is so good. There are so many quotes you can pull. And the thing is that it's funny, like, so Anna Karenina, I pulled all of these quotes from that book, and I'd written them all down because the emotions that Anna Karenina felt in that book, I've experienced them as well. Those toxic, super poisonous emotions. I had gone through myself in past relationships, and I was still dealing with them as I read that book. And I'd pulled so many quotes from them. And then War and Peace, I didn't really, it was like, I didn't really pull that many quotes. I was just like, okay, chapter 10 of, I think it was part 2, chapter 10 of part 2, and then the epilogue. That's just those whole chapters that's my quote. Like that's what you need to go back and reread, even if you're not going to reread the book. Those are the chapters you need to read. So it's like either like 2-sentence quotes, 3-sentence quotes in a Karenina, or like full-on chapter quotes from War and Peace. And then Resurrection had these like paragraph long quotes. This is kind of funny. Like this really is a balance of both worlds. But it's just like it's just so good. So like, because the thing is like there are two aspects to the story, right? You have the injustice of the judicial system and class disparity, but the thing is like they're all interlinked with one another, and that's what Tolstoy is trying to discuss. Like, because oh gosh, there's so much to talk about. Seriously, like, can I just like read what I wrote to you guys? I can't. It's way too long. But basically, he just says like the whole reason that the judicial system and class disparity are interlinked with one another is because the criminals, criminals will be punished for a certain thing, right? So they'll be punished for murder. They'll be punished for theft. They'll be being punished for prostitution and things like that. But the thing is that like the rich people, the upper class of society, will do the exact same things, but they don't get punished for it because they are upper class, right? So the example that he gives is that a poor person will be punished for murdering another man because of maybe a territory dispute. But an upperclassman, a man in the upper class will, a general, for example, will declare war and will murder people over a territorial dispute. But does he get punished for the act of murder? No, he doesn't, because basically what Tolstoy is saying is that the upper class, the upper genteel class, the gentlemen, the bourgeois of society, they can break the rules because they create the laws. So if they do something that typically someone of a lower class would get punished for, well, they create the laws and they just can word the laws so that they don't get punished for them. And in fact, sometimes they're even praised to them, like, oh, you murdered all these people, but you were able to get this land for our homeland, then you are applaud. Congratulations, you are a great general. Here's your medal. Here's your pay raise. Here's some land for you to develop and create your own, your own world of riches, right? So it's just so on point what Tolstoy writes. And for me, what I really liked about this book is that when I was reading this book, it reminded me of this question that's very often used on social media. To get views, because it's an easy conversation to create comments. But I still think it's a good question, even though now it's kind of a rage bait question. But the question is, what is considered tacky if you are poor, but classy if you are rich, right? And examples are living in a hotel. If you're poor and you live in a hotel, that means you can't afford your own home. Or it means you've been kicked out of your home. It means maybe you're homeless and your only option is to live in a hotel for a week before you have to go live in a shelter. But if you live in a hotel as a rich person, well, that's because you can afford those hotels. You live in a hotel because you can afford it. You're traveling the world because you can afford it, okay? Another example is day drinking alcohol. If a poor person is drinking bottles of vodka all day, they're degenerate. They're an alcoholic. They're bad people. But the little rich housewife who's going shopping for an Hermes bags and who has had 5 mimosas in the morning before she goes, she's not an alcoholic because she's having a mimosa. It's brunch, right? It's classy. It's not veiled alcoholism. A very common one that I thought was funny is getting money from the government. If you're poor and you get money from the government, which means you're on welfare, like you're tacky. You should get a job, right? You should pull yourself by your bootstraps. But if a rich person gets money from the government, all of a sudden it's classy. It's normal. It's what we do, right? And my personal favorite from these kind of discussions is what's considered tacky if you're poor, but classy if you're rich. Well, speaking another language, right? poor immigrants who speak Spanish and English. They speak more than one language. Tacky, you're an immigrant, no one likes you. But if a bourgeois speaks French and Russian and Italian, oh, Spanish, oh, they're so bourgeois, they're so amazing, right? They're classy. So this is a super famous discussion that's on social media, and it just reminded me of this book so much. And Tolstoy, he just goes over it so well, and it's exactly what this whole book about. Like it's you're combining all of that, and you're combining it with the class disparity, which causes the systematic poverty, and as a result causes crime. So basically it's like a rich man, he owns all the land, he collects all the rent, he's in a position to elect himself on every board, and to gain a substantial salary, he can dine with his wife and children, he can he can remodel the house, he can feed his mistress bonbons and chocolates, and he can wear the finest costumes for himself. A rich man can do that. But in the meantime, the poor receive the bare minimum wage. And of course, because of that, they can eat potatoes and porridge. They can't afford new fixings. They can't afford costumes. They have to sew the holes in the clothes so that they can get another year of wear out of it. So the rich create the circumstances where the poor have to become thieves. The rich create situations where women have to sell their bodies. The rich create situations where they have to kind of find loopholes through the system, right? And the thing is that the rich, they create the situation, and then they look at these poor people doing these things, and they're like, there is a thief. Let's send him away in prison. And they pat themselves on the back for being upright citizens of the law, right? They're like, yes, we've captured the bad men, not realizing that they've created these bad people per se. So that's the whole book about. Is this class disparity, the judicial system, how they are one and the same thing, how one creates the other, and how it's just society and its hypocrisy at its finest, which is what Tolstoy loves to talk about. And he does it in this marvelous way with great characters. And I think this book is so readable and so good, and I definitely think this is an amazing way to get into Tolstoy. So Resurrection by Tolstoy. If you don't know whether you want to read Anna Karenina or War and Peace, read this one first, and then if you like the history side of this book, then go in War and Peace next. If you like the social, the dramatics, the romantic side of this book, then you can go to Anna Karenina next. That's where I would say. All right, there's Tolstoy. Let's do the last book that I haven't taken notes on yet, which sucks, because this book, so good. The Kraken Wakes, or the Kraken Wakes, depending on how you want to pronounce the Kraken or the Kraken. This is a phenomenal book. It's so good. Oh my gosh, I was riveted by this book. And I'm really actually super extra riveted by the book, because the last book I read by John Wyndham, I didn't really like. That was the book about the lichen, Trouble with Lichen. So I've read, this is now my fourth book. I've read Day of the Triffids, amazing, fascinating, so good. I've read The Midwich Cuckoos, also really good. There's a third one. Oh my goodness, it's not on this list of books written by John Wyndham. Oh, that's gonna annoy me. And it's not in an obvious place on my bookcase. No, we're gonna find out. Hold on. No. Wait. No, there's gotta be another one, because The Midwich Cuckoos is about, like, there's, what is it? Like, there are two books. There's one about the young children who are aliens that take over a village, and there's a protection barrier around the village, right? There's that book, which was excellent. And then the other one is about these children who have special powers, but they are being forced to not reveal their powers, because if they do, they will get murdered. and they decide they have to flee the village. Those are two separate books, and I don't know which one is the Midwich Cuckoos, and the thing is, like, the other one, what's it called? I don't even see it on my bookshelf. Like, it's definitely there, but I don't see it. And it's definitely John. In any case, this is the 5th book, I believe, that I read from John Wyndham, and this one was just, it was perfection. It was perfection. It was utter perfection. So what is this book about? Okay, so one day, there are these sort of red energy light spheres that fall from the sky and fall into the ocean. And at first, the army tries to shoot them down because they're very suspicious objects. But whether they shoot them down or don't shoot them down, nothing really happens. So they decide, you know what, it's just a weird natural phenomena, and they just let it be. And this starts off an incredibly horrifying tale of basically an alien race taking over the ocean. Because what's remarkable about this book is that so often, whenever there's a story about an alien race taking over planet Earth, they always take over the land. And this story says, what would happen if they took over our oceans? And it is frightening. It is terrifying. This book is terrifying. So it's told from the point of view of two people. It's a husband and wife team, and basically they are sort of freelance journalists. And they were, which puts them in a position where they were basically to observe every sort of pivotal moment, or at least be aware of every pivotal moment, every pivotal update in the taking over of Earth by these creatures, these sort of like sea aliens, basically. And because of that, they were able to push the plot along for us so that we know what's going on. And the book is separated into 3 phases, which basically is the 3 phases of how these sea creatures, these sea aliens, managed to take over. And the book, I would have to get into spoilers, and I want to talk about spoilers, so but I can't tell you how much I would love to spoil every moment of this plot, so I can be like, for those of you guys who have read it, I can be like, okay, what did you think about this? Like, wasn't this amazing? Like, oh my goodness, the way they did this, and then how phase 2 was about this, and then when phase 3 happened, and then all the humans had to do this, like, holy crap, like I can't imagine. And then the way the aliens attack. And it's just amazing. And the thing is that, like, okay, so the story, the science fiction story behind it is just crazy. Like I said, it's terrifying. It's super scary. Like again, like if you've read War of the Worlds, right? If you've read H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds, that's a classic story about the aliens taking over the land. And that is scary. It's actually a very scary book, and it's quite terrifying. But the ocean, it just brings up thoughts that you never could have imagined, right? Because you're talking about aliens that just take over the deep part of the ocean that humans have never ever been able to penetrate. We can't go down that far. And so we're like, well, what's going down there? And like, how could aliens take over Earth just by taking over the oceans? Oh my gosh, it's so scary. And the thing is that, like, it turns into a story not even just about that. Like, obviously that's the scary part, but it's like, it's a book that looks about what happens when humans kind of see something and they decide to deny what they see and not take aggressive action at the very beginning, and they just let things happen, and because of that, things just get worse and worse and worse, and they keep denying things, and they keep trying to live in little la la land. And whenever there are scientists, they're like, well, this scientist is hysterical, they're lying, they're just trying to get street cred. And it's just like, it's a book. It's funny because the blurb says that this is an ingenious early example of climate fiction, but I don't think it's an ingenious early example of climate fiction. I think it's an ingenious early example of humans becoming mistrusting of science, and because of that, they just kind of live in their own world and just deny everything until it happens to them, and all of a sudden they're like, oh no, it's happening to me, now we have to do something about it, right? Which I think you guys all know what I'm talking about. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? About how that, like, that situation. Yeah. So this book is extraordinary. It's extraordinary. I would read this over and over again. I could have highlighted everything, to be honest. There's no moment of this book that is extraneous, that could be edited out. There is no moment where I said, oh, maybe he should explain this more, or this doesn't feel right. No, this book is, it's perfection. It's flawless. And I know that this, and like, it makes me feel better about when I read the book Trouble with Lichen, because Trouble with Lichen was a book that I loved the idea so much, but I thought he really failed on his execution, and I thought that book, John Wyndham, lost track of what he was trying to say with that book, and because of that, I didn't think it was good. Like, some people say it's really good, but I'm like, no, I think he kind of lost track of the plot. And so when I read this, I'm like, yeah, I wasn't wrong about that book, because this book is flawless. It's absolutely flawless. He knew where he was taking this book, and he brought us there. And it's, as again I said, it's terrifying. And this book was just fantastic. It's just a must read. So there you go. That was my excellent February reading month. I killed it. I think I killed it so much. I don't think you could do better. I don't, because every book got certain emotions out of me. It did exactly what I wanted it to do when I read them. I got shocking societal commentary. I got thrilling emotions. I got calm, beautiful, buttery writing. I got humor. I got to laugh. I got to be whimsical with a young little girl, and I got to see the terrors of aliens invading the earth. And I think all of it was so good, and it was so much fun to read. And I can't tell you guys, there was a book that I was almost done by the end of February. There was one more book, and I wanted to finish it so hard, because that book, I'm telling you, the author of that book, she is my great discovery of 2026. I am obsessed with her. I want to read everything she's written. I have downloaded everything. The hint, she's out of print. That's my hint to you of who she is. She's out of print. You can't buy her books. So I downloaded everything from Project Gutenberg, and I hope to read at least 2 or 3 of her books this year. She's my, like, I wanted so hard to finish that book in February, not to be like, I read 8 books, I read 10 books, not to be like one of those like that. No, that's not the point. It's just the fact that I want to talk about her so soon with you guys, and it's gonna have to wait another month till the end of March, which sucks. You're gonna have to wait, but I'm really excited because oh my, I'm you know how like everyone, like the influencers say I'm obsessed? I don't think I've said that word once on my channel yet, and I'm gonna say it. I'm obsessed with the author that I'm going to introduce you in the month of March, because I'm obsessed. She's a hero. So yeah, there we go. I'm like I said, I'm having a killer reading year so far. I'm so excited. The reading mojo is in me. I want to read everything I touch, and I'm having fun with everything I am reading. I'm so excited, and I'm so happy I get to share that with you guys. So anyway, thank you so much for watching this very long video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope I was decently coherent in my thoughts. Like I'm kind of mad about the Kraken Wakes. The thing about the Kraken Wakes was that like everything was so phenomenal that I just kept reading, and I didn't take any notes. But I could, like I said, I could have made a note on every single page. There's so much in this book that you could talk about. That like, so it sucks that my review became so basic, because the book is not basic. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. All right, we're gonna end it here. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.